Hi everybody. My name is Matt Ryan. I'm Mr. ADHD Games. And with me this evening, I have somebody who streams with me just about every Tuesday and Thursday. We play a ton of games together. This is somebody I've known for about 6 years. Hired them to work with me at Chipotle. Worked with them and promoted them up through management at Chipotle. Um, it's just been best friends with for one of the best friends I've made in Knoxville for sure. This is my friend Tessa. Tessa, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name's Tessa. I've known Matt for feels like forever, but it's one of my best friends, and I'm super excited that I get to stream with him all the time, and I'm super excited for this interview.
Awesome. Well, oh, Gadget Girl says hey.
What's up? You
So,
get to see what I look like.
I know, it's for real. It's totally, you're a real person.
I'm a real person, not just a voice.
Yeah, absolutely. So, um, Tessa, one of the coolest things, one of the things that I think is really neat is how creative of a person you are. You're very artistic. And one of the major ways you express yourself through that is photography. Um, so, big props to you. Legacy Images Photography is their website. You can find them all over the place. But tell me a little bit about being a photographer with ADHD. How do you feel it impacts you um, differently?
Yeah, so one of the things that uh, my mom always said for me growing up was I was never going to be able to work for someone. I was always going to have to work for myself. Like, that was just the personality that I had. Um, Not that I didn't like work well with others, it's just that I always had kind of my own idea about how I wanted to do something. And it didn't always go necessarily with what everyone else's view of how to do things were. Um, so I think it's really interesting that I ended up being a photographer because now I own my own business and I do work for myself, which is super awesome. But that does come with a lot of challenges. I know I've been talking to Matt about this recently too. Um, Sometimes I'll get so overwhelmed because it's not just the photography, which that might be my passion, that's what I'm doing, but as a business owner, you have the entire business side that you have to deal with too. So I can get overwhelmed really easily. I can get hyper focused on. That's one of the things I struggle with a lot is hyper focusing. Um, so I'll focus really intently on like maybe my edits, and I'll kind of like drain myself. I'll get exhausted after doing so many edits for so long that I just don't really want to do the other part of it because I'm not as passionate about it. So that's something that I've struggled with as a business owner with ADHD. But on the flip side, it is also really cool because I get a different outlook on things. Um, I feel like people with ADHD tend to be really creative. I've been seeing a couple of TikToks of this one guy who's like, oh, I just follow the dopamine. I follow the dopamine. I feel like that's very true. And so one of the things that following the dopamine did was led me to photography. And so it's really nice to get to express myself in different ways and express the personalities of my subjects in different ways too. And I feel like that's something that my ADHD actually helps me out with is thinking a little bit outside of the box.
Yeah, that's amazing. That sounds like it would be a great benefit in photography, having the ability to see things from different perspectives, like more perspectives than somebody who can just see it for like, okay, this is square and this looks perfect, and it's like, no, I got a broader view. I view things a little differently than other people. Oh, Tuna
Absolutely.
Tuna has dropped the name in the chat. Tuna, I think that you have their accounts as well, so I think you're a moderator. You should be able to do it. But if not, we will do it at the end. We'll make sure that Tessa or myself posts all the links and they'll be
For
available.
sure.
Um, so, tell me a little bit about when you were diagnosed with ADHD. Was it when was it, and just kind of walk me through that experience.
So, personally, I think I should have been diagnosed a long time ago. But um, as someone who is, um, their ADHD doesn't manifest in the way like the hyperactivity part of it, it wasn't as noticeable like in behavior. So I was fairly well behaved as a child. Um, so I really didn't get diagnosed officially until like I was in my like I think 19 or 20. So like early 20s. I'm still in my early 20s, but like when I was about 20 is when I got diagnosed. And I say diagnosed because even though I was exhibiting these symptoms, it was a very nonchalant diagnosis. And so it actually I was talking to my therapist one day and she was like, "You know what? I think you might have ADHD." I was like, that sounds about right. Like, it sounds like all the things I've struggled with in the past and I've just learned to cope with. Um, and so I talked to my psychiatrist, and he was like, "Huh, yeah, guess you have ADHD." um, and so it was a really nonchalant approach to it, just because I had been coping with it for so long without it being diagnosed that I had kind of come up with these methods of coping that, you know, kind of subsided the symptoms. The symptoms would subside a little bit. Um, so it wasn't super noticeable. Um, and then we tried a different medication. I was on Adderall, um, and we tried switching to something else, and it just destroyed my mood. And so I felt really awkward and not like myself. And I did not like that, so we went back to the Adderall, and that's actually really, really helped, and it's been a noticeable improvement for me.
That's great. No, absolutely. That's actually what I'm on actually right now is Adderall, and I'm currently having a really good experience with it. It's been very, very helpful for me. So always glad to advocate for people who want to give medication a try. Definitely talk to your doctors and get the proper medication for you because it can be really, really helpful. It can really I mean, it can take anxiety and depression, and a lot of that comes from having ADHD. And when you get your medications correct, and it hits, and like it takes a little bit to find that right dosage and the right everything, but when it does, that anxiety and depression is less. Like because some of it comes from feeling awkward about yourself and how you feel. So recognizing you have ADHD and educating yourself is very powerful. But sometimes medication can help too. But pills don't teach skills. That's one of the things I say is like there are skills and things that you can habits you can build that are just as helpful and there are ways to get around medication. I mean, look, you did it for 18, 19 years. And so it's one of those things where not required, but it has been helpful for me as well. So always advocating for people seeking help if they need it.
I definitely like I used to have a negative view on being medicated, especially when, like, I actually first saw my psychiatrist for depression and anxiety, and so I was really against being medicated. I thought like all the thoughts in my head were, oh, there's something wrong with me, but what they helped me realize is that it's not something wrong with you. It's your brain is literally unable to produce these chemicals, and that's not a fault of you or your character. That's literally your brain. It's just like someone getting the flu or someone getting a cold, in the sense of they sometimes need medicine to help them get over those symptoms. So I definitely strongly advocate for like having medicine and therapy work hand in hand. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for those two systems working together. Because I definitely think there's a lot that medicine can do for you, but it's not a catch-all system. There's still a lot of skills that you need that can help you cope.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want you to talk to me a little bit about um, the LGBTQ community and ADHD. Are those communities, do they cross paths at all? Where does similarities lie in between maybe the feelings you had about one or the other? I mean, identifying yourself. I mean, I know that when I recognized what ADHD was and I came to realize that um, some people outgrow it, but guess what? I'm not going to. Sorry. Like kind
Yeah.
of accepted it. It was huge for me. So talk to me a little bit about those things.
Yeah, so I identify as bisexual and gender fluid, which means I don't necessarily confine to one binary spectrum of gender. I feel like I fill in a role that's somewhere in between the binaries or not even on the binary scale. Um, and for me, what I've noticed is in the community, there seems to be a general, like, generally speaking, not every person is the same. So, in a general sense, there does seem to be an overlap between like LGBT community and neurodivergent community. Um, Not saying that everyone that's LGBTQ plus is going to be neurodivergent or vice versa, but there is a nice meshing of those two communities. Um, and a lot of it, I think, does come with, like you were talking about, like acceptance. So, like accepting yourself. So, that's something that the two communities can really relate on, is acceptance of themselves and each other, and learning how to coexist in a community of people that aren't quote unquote typical. Um, and I do know ADHD'ers and LGBT communities have a higher rate of mental illness sometimes. And a lot of that can stem from, not being able to accept yourself or not being accepted by society. So I do think there is some overlap in that sense.
Oh, perfect. I love that. Yeah, I think you're that's a great way to place it. Just like two groups of people who are hyper aware of what being different is like.
Hmm.
So they probably do get along really, really well. So I know that you are doing some projects for school and you have some personal projects going on. Tell me about your most passionate project you're on right now. Tell me about the most passionate thing you're working on.
So my biggest project that I've been trying to kind of kickstart for a while, is part of my photography. Um, so I do on my business side, I do a lot of family photography, but I also do boudoir photography. And so an area that I really want to get into in a project I've really been trying to kickstart um, has been boudoir photography that celebrates LGBTQ and LGBTQ bodies. So, focusing on transgender and gender fluid peoples and giving them a safe space to express themselves in ways that they might not be able to do or feel comfortable doing safely. Um, and so that's my biggest project right now. It's still kind of in like the baby stages of getting everything together, but my absolute dream would be able to open an exhibition featuring trans and non-binary bodies.
That's amazing. That's a really amazing thing. I really like that.
Yeah, thank you.
So, um, I'm going to ask you a silly question because at
All right.
the end I always have to ask something silly. And I've asked you so many of these just through working with you at Chipotle, and you've sat with me on so many actual job interviews for people that you've
Oh
probably
yeah.
heard a lot of them. So I'm trying to think
Mhm.
of a really good one, but I'm trying to think of a really, really good one. Oh, what if you had to dress up for Halloween and you could wear any costume? What costume would you wear?
Oh man, that is a really good one because you're hitting at another like hobby of mine, which is cosplay. And there's so many cosplays that I would love to do.
What would like one? Just give me your like dream one. Like if I could have like if I could get a costume for Halloween and dress up, like this would be the costume I would get.
Oh man, I think it would have to honestly be like an original character of mine.
Ooh.
Um, and that's Vixen. Um,
Oh, isn't that
which
that's your
That's
Twitch
yeah,
name?
that's my Twitch name, yeah. But I have little cat ears that I'll wear. I should have worn them for this interview, but I have cat ears and a little cat tail and just like a really badass like biker outfit. Like that's my Vixen persona, and that's probably what I would dress up
Nice. Well, that is an
as.
amazing, amazing answer. Well, do you have the other thing I kind of forgot is I always like to allow my ADHDers to thank their supporter. Like if I know that usually people with ADHD have like a handful of people that have really just been there for them, or are just their support system. And I know from being someone with ADHD, sometimes it's not the easiest to be that for people. So if you want to give a shout out to any of those amazing people, you are super welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I my biggest supporters, honestly, one of them is you. Like you're just so amazing. You've been there for me for through so much of my life, and through so much like hardship that I've had to go through. So I really appreciate you, and I appreciate this community that you're building because I think it's wonderful. But also, shout out to my partner Cole. Like he's super amazing. He's been super supportive. He's actually one of the first people that really embraced using my pronouns, which are they them, and he's been super supportive. He's also an HD I can't talk. um, but he also has struggled with a lot of the things that I've struggled with, but maybe in a little bit different way. Um, and he's been a great supporter for that. So shout out to both of you guys.
Oh, awesome. And I'm going to give a shout out to Michelle because
And my mom,
your
yes.
mom is awesome too. She's like the
My mom is
coolest.
amazing.
Yeah, she is one of the most caring, compassionate people. She's a vet who does all kinds of crazy hours and
Oh
like
yeah,
does it for the animals because she loves them. So, and she raised you to be a loving and very
she
compassionate
did.
person as well. So, big ups to you, Michelle. If you ever watch this, big ups to you. All right.
I'll just show her the video.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure to clip it so you can show it to her.
Of
But
course.
if anybody in the chat has questions for Tessa, I will like pause for just like a couple seconds. So anybody who wants to pose any questions over here that they might have can. If you don't have any questions, we're gonna end it. All
And I
right.
will post my photography information in the chat too.
Okay. Yeah, I know Tuna tagged something in there for
Yeah, I see
you.
the Instagram in there.
Yeah, but you can post your website and all that stuff in there for everybody. But thank you so much, Tessa, for playing games with me every week and also for taking time to interview and be so open and talk about things. I think that being open and talking about things is one of the best things as a community we can do. Because we don't feel as weird because we know other people have the same stuff going on, like similar things going on. And like you said,
Absolutely.
TikTok's amazing for it. Twitter's amazing for it. Like you can find all kinds of good content. So I'm gonna throw up the BRB screen, and then we will be back to play at 9:30. Bye, everybody.